So there's an old saying that there's two types of states. States that charge income tax and states that do not. And in this video, we're going to be discussing the states that don't charge income tax.
So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. Welcome back to Living in the Pacific Northwest with Hal Byrd. I'm Hal Byrd.
And I'm JB.
And we started this channel about, I was just going to say 7 years ago. We started it 4 years ago. We've been living in Southwest Washington for 7 years.
We should have started it 7 years ago.
Should have. And we talk all about what it's like to live in Washington State, specifically our part of the state in Southwest Washington, and help people relocate from all over the country to our beautiful corner of the world. I am a licensed realtor and relocation specialist in both Oregon and Washington, and I'm really excited to talk about the 9 tax-free. When we say tax-free, that's short for saying income tax-free on the state level, because obviously everybody's paying federal taxes.
Yes.
But I think it's a really good topic because it's one of the things that we really thought about and considered when we were moving.
Absolutely. So 7 years is when we relocated here, and one of our major considerations was finding a state coming from California was a state that was a little bit more tax advantaged than what we were used to.
Yeah, because we got to a point then when we were like, we could move anywhere with the business we were running at the time. We could move anywhere. So where do we want to be, not where do we have to be?
Fair enough. And then in doing our homework, like a lot of you guys are probably doing or have done, we started to realize that there were only a handful of states that didn't charge a state income tax. And most people know about the bigger states, right?
Yeah.
So you have Florida, you have Texas.
Maybe Nevada.
I
don't think, do people really know about Nevada?
I think the smarter people know that Nevada is an income tax-free state.
Okay.
But again, for us, that was a big consideration. And, you know, we had other considerations we'll talk about in other videos. And if you've been watching our channel for a while, you probably heard of some of those considerations prior.
And they can also watch our Journey to Vancouver, Washington video here, where we talk about what led us to the decision to move not only to Washington State, but to this area of
all the many considerations. And it may be worth it for you because, again, some things may resonate. It may give you something to think about that you're not yet thinking about. But again, going back to the taxes, you know, we were looking for a situation in a state and a place to call home, not cost us as much in income tax.
And then we'll get to that. I was going to say bonus is that we were looking for as little sales tax as possible.
Yeah, it's like a little pre-Freudian slip.
Yeah. But today we're just talking about income tax. So in this video, we compiled 6 categories to go over regarding each state, just so you can know a little bit more about each state and decide if there's one that stands out to you. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about why we chose Washington after ourselves personally considering each of these.
That sounds good.
So the first state we're going to cover is
the great state of Alaska.
And Alaska has a population of just over 700,000 people. And how do you feel about that size? That seems pretty small.
Oh, it's very, very small. It's less than 1 million people for the entire state. So where we used to live at, they had that 700,000 people that used to live in one small town.
In the county? That was about a small town, but. And then median household income is about $76,000.
Okay.
Do you think that's supported by, so one of the categories we're covering is the major industries, and major industries in Alaska is oil and gas, fishing and tourism.
Yep.
Do you think that their median income is bolstered by the oil and gas industry? It'd have to be, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then median home price there is about $300,000. So that's pretty good these days.
That's very good these days. What about the climate? Subarctic, mayhaps?
Subarctic.
What does that mean? It's below the Arctic?
It just means it's cold.
Oh, wow. My kind of place. Why didn't we move there?
You wouldn't have a wife living with you if you moved to Alaska.
That might not be bad. It could be a long distance.
Long distance marriage. I had an aunt and uncle who did that.
See?
Works great for them.
And you already mentioned major industries is fishing, energy, right? So oil, gas,
yeah.
Fishing, and tourism. All right. And then the sixth category is notable features.
Yeah, notable features about Alaska is obviously like vast wilderness. The majority of it is not inhabited. They do have that permanent fund dividend.
Yeah, which is basically almost like a stipend you get for being a resident of the state of Alaska.
And most recently it was $1,000 for the year.
Yep.
Which we were kind of chuckling at, but then I also said that's $1,000 more than I would have gotten from any other state.
And it's better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
Yes, it is.
And Alaska also has a lower tax burden overall.
Yeah, because they don't have any sales tax, and I guess their property tax is a little bit lower. So overall, they have one of the lowest tax burdens in the country at 4.6%.
And that's when you take basically all of the taxes into consideration.
Yep, every little thing the government nickels and dimes you for.
4.6%.
Yep.
That's Alaska. So next up we have Florida, and Florida is a pretty good sized state. We recently did a video about why people are over Florida and moving to the Pacific Northwest and Washington state specifically, but Florida is a state of approximately 23 million people.
And the median income in Florida is about $65,000 per year.
Yep. The median home price is about $390,000.
Now, so we're getting a little bit away from Alaska. Alaska median was higher income and lower housing costs. But I think the big difference and the thing that people would care the most about, or in comparing, let's say, Alaska and Florida, which are like polar opposites, figuratively and literally, well, not literally polar, but you know what I mean, is the climate.
Right.
So Florida obviously has a much more tropical climate. And I think for a lot of people that would be, well, for 22 million people, it's more appealing to be slightly lower on the median income and higher on the prices.
Yeah, they're both beach states though.
Sure.
They're both coastal states, as a fact.
Coastal, yeah. Obviously, Florida's a big retirement destination.
And Florida has major industries of tourism, of course, aerospace, and agriculture.
Yep. So that's all sounds great. Why didn't we move to Florida?
Why would I move to Florida? No offense.
No, but I mean, really, for us, I think it was the climate, because subtropical is not your ideal climate.
No. I'm more of a subarctic kind of guy. It's true. You see this beard?
You didn't have that beard when we moved to the Northwest.
Sure I did. I got pictures. We'll put one here.
Now, moving on to the third state, we've got Nevada, which is a population of about 3.2 million people. Obviously a very well-known state for Vegas. It's its most popular city. But there's a lot more to Nevada than just Vegas.
The median average income is about $63,000.
And the median home price in Nevada is about $400,000.
Okay. Climate, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that it is an arid desert type of climate.
Very deserty. But I think that's pretty true for the whole state. Obviously, as you move north, you get colder, but it's still considered a desert.
I don't know. Now, see, I would live in Reno, Nevada.
You would.
I would.
And you almost moved to Nevada, to the Vegas part of Nevada at one time in your life.
That is a very true fun fact.
What was the reason you decided not to move there?
For me, it was a little too far from the East Coast and home and family at the time, and maybe not enough attraction. So the Strip gets old to me quickly. So I did like some of the things off the Strip, Hoover Dam and Red Rock Canyon and Lake Mead, but beyond that, it wasn't a whole lot that I was attracted to.
And since you brought up the Strip, I think obviously the Vegas and Nevada, big hub for entertainment.
Yes.
And obviously no state income tax, but does have higher sales tax.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And it is landlocked, which, as someone who grew up on always within an hour or so of a coast, it's kind of a mentally hard thing to wrap your head around, to not being close to a coast.
That's a great point. Yeah. Fun fact, Nevada and Las Vegas specifically, along with Florida, are the only two of the 9 states that have a Formula One circuit on the calendar for UF1 fans.
So good to visit, but not for us to live.
Bingo.
Okay.
Next up on the list, we have the great state of New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is a state I didn't know a whole lot about. And based on the size, I think a lot of people don't know a whole lot about New Hampshire. But it is a pretty fascinating state.
Population, 1.4 million people.
4 million people.
And median income?
77,000.
Yep.
Okay. So it's way up in the Northeast, obviously.
And median home price?
360,000. Not bad.
It's a good median income to home price. Now, what's going to stop a lot of people from moving to New Hampshire is what would be considered humid continental, but what most people would be considered way too damn cold.
He's rubbing his hands like Birdman. But humid continental. See, I don't like humidity, but I like the idea of snow.
Lots of snow.
Yep.
I think on this list, New Hampshire gets the most snow out of any of the states.
It's going. It's getting hot. Its stock is rising. Now, the main industries in New Hampshire is manufacturing, healthcare, and education.
Kind of interesting industries because like healthcare and education are mainly just going to service the population, if that makes sense, like to educate the population that's already there. Whereas like California, where like you have agriculture, or even Florida, you have agriculture, they're exporting a lot.
Right.
It's not just for the people of that state.
Right.
And in New Hampshire, you've got no sales tax, but high property tax. So they're getting you in another way.
So no income tax and no sales tax, but a higher property tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's a stopping point for, why didn't we consider New Hampshire when we were relocating?
I think for us, and we've talked about this in other videos, and we could talk about this more, but overall, it's not perfect, but the West Coast, and obviously you're from the West Coast, right? I have much less experience, but the West Coast represents a certain kind of lifestyle, not necessarily from a political standpoint, but just from a kind of a laid back, quality of life lifestyle. And I personally didn't have much interest in moving back to the East Coast.
Specifically the Northeast, because of I think it's also a lot more dense population-wise, a lot more congested.
Yeah, at least what I'm used to. Growing up in Philadelphia, obviously New York on one side, New Jersey on the other, and then you have the DMV, super dense population. Now, again, we didn't really think or consider New Hampshire. With 1.4 million people, it's a fraction of what the state of Washington has even.
And lower population for you is a pro.
It is a pro. It's a big pro for us, especially coming from Southern California, state of almost 40 million people. We were definitely looking for a state with less density. So moving on from New Hampshire, we talked about that a lot. How about the next state, which is South Dakota?
Yep, we've got population of 900,000, median income around 70,000.
Interesting.
And we're going now to the lowest median home prices we've seen at 290,000.
So we're now below 300 grand.
Yep.
Interesting.
Now, South Dakota is a state that we considered moving to.
Yes, it is. And we were considering a 100-acre parcel.
We would need all 100 acres to entertain ourselves.
That was 5 hours away from the nearest Walmart even.
Oh man. But it had its own lake. I think that South Dakota, it's also for a lot of people that they call it humid subtropical, but I think this also falls in the way too damn cold category for most people.
Yeah, so kind of like, I would consider South Dakota like one of the flyover states.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you're looking down out of the plane and you're like, I wouldn't mind a big plot of land, but then you're like, then you'd have to live here. So no disrespect to anyone who lives in any of these states. We just like to have fun, share our perspective. But we did indeed consider South Dakota.
Yeah, and some notable features, obviously Mount Rushmore, which accounts for some of their tourism.
Yeah, it's a big motorcycle tourist state, so that did rank high in my book. Big Harley destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anything else to say about it? I would say this one has a low overall tax burden, like in terms of car registration. It's also a very popular state for people who RV full-time. We thought about that before we moved to Washington.
Very true.
We had a lot of things to consider when we decided to leave California.
Right.
And so anyway, South Dakota being a very popular place to register your RV or have full-time
residency if you're what we call
a full-time traveler.
Yeah, a wanderlust. What is the word?
That's very 2010. Moving on. So moving on to number 6, we've got Tennessee with a population of about 7 million people.
Tennessee is a great state. I've spent some time living in Atlanta for a number of years. I've passed through Tennessee quite a lot. It's a state of 7 million people, like you said.
Yeah.
$65,000 is the median annual income.
And the median home prices are $320,000. Tennessee, also humid subtropical, but in a totally different way, less cold. I'd be interested to see like what the annual rainfall and snowfall is in a place like Tennessee. But I imagine it would be humid in the summer and cold in the winter.
Yeah, Tennessee has a pretty varied geography, kind of a lot like Washington. So it would depend highly on what part of the state you live in.
Yeah, and industries there, you've got healthcare, education, and then music and entertainment. Big hub, especially for country music.
Yeah.
Great place if you're in the music industry to be.
And then just some of the standouts for Tennessee is it's a vibrant music scene, obviously. It's a growing economy, and there's no state income tax.
That brings us to good old Texas.
Tejas.
Now we have a video about, in our Over It series, Over It Texas, which you can watch right here. Why are you laughing?
I just like the name Over It.
Texas is the largest state population-wise on this list at about 30 million people, and pretty strong income, median income of around $70,000.
And the median home price is about $350,000. Regarding the climate, and being such a large state, Texas is very varied from a weather standpoint, but it goes from arid to humid.
I think that Texas is also a big draw for people relocating from California. Like a lot of Californians that are leaving and probably going back to states that their people came from, because California has a lot of transplants. But I think it's an easier jump. But I've spoken to a lot of people who've left California, moved to Texas, and been like, this is not it for us. And they either go back to California or they find their way up to the Northwest, or some people keep heading east over to Florida. So it's an interesting state. It's a very strong culture.
Strong culture, but again, it's like Texas could be its own country. You know, when I think about Dallas, Fort Worth, when I think about Houston, when I think about El Paso, I mean, it's just so varied as a state. It really kind of just depends on your flavor and what you're looking for.
Yeah, I will say that even though there's no state income tax, which is well known, it also has high property tax. They really get you, up in the 2 to 3% range for property tax.
Yeah.
But lots of job opportunities, very strong, diverse economy as well.
Yeah. So next on the list is Washington, but we're actually going to save that for last.
On our alphabetical list.
On our alphabetical list, and we're going to go with the actual alphabetically last state of Wyoming. So Wyoming is another one of those flyover states.
Population 580,000. $68,000 median income.
And the median home price is about $280,000.
Wyoming seems to me the most similar on any of these states to where we live.
Really?
Because it's so focused on the outdoors, nature, more like ranch style. To me, I've never been to Wyoming, but I picture Wyoming being like if Washington and Texas had a baby.
Or Washington and Montana had a baby.
Yeah, but Montana's not on this list.
Oh, okay. So what is, if who had a baby?
If Washington and Texas had a baby, I feel like that would be Wyoming.
That's a really good analogy. I never thought about that like that.
Now you want to move to Wyoming, don't you?
Possibly. I need to get my RV and do some touring.
So the climate here is semi-arid.
And the big industries in Wyoming is energy, agriculture, and tourism.
Especially, I would say, since COVID, like tourism, big increase in Wyoming. Tourism and transplants, people moving there.
You get a lot for your money. And as far as some of the standouts with Wyoming, a lot of it reminded me of what we found attractive about Washington, which is no state income tax, a low population, and a lot of outdoor recreational activities.
I think that Wyoming is the lowest population density of any state. I'm pretty sure. We'll have to fact check ourselves on that.
Fair enough.
And that brings us to the state that we chose, which is Washington. So here in the Evergreen State, we've got a population of 7.8 million. Median household income, 78,000, which I think is the highest on this list, if I'm remembering correctly.
Slightly higher than Alaska.
but also the highest median home price.
So of course, you're more to live here. You have a median home price of $450,000.
Which for the West Coast is affordable.
And relatively speaking, yes, it is.
But hard if you're coming from other states. Like if you're coming from Texas or Florida, like a lot of our clients do, they want to maintain their no income tax, but they realize that they're going to get less house for their money when they move to Washington.
Right. But again, in context, if you think about living on the West Coast, and I mean, typically within, call it 2 hours of the ocean, most people expect to pay a little bit more for their home. From a climate standpoint, because Washington is a coastal state, it's considered oceanic and marine.
And I would also say that it's varied because the climate on the west side of the state, west of the Cascade Mountain Range, is very different, more like you said, oceanic, than the east side of the state, which is more like arid, deserty.
Yeah, because of that mountain range, the distinction is pretty wild.
One of the few places I've been where it's so distinct.
Yeah. Now for context, if you're just tuning into this channel and finding us, we live in Southwest Washington, so we are west of the Cascade Mountain Range. It's considered almost a rainforest, right?
Yeah, I think there are parts of the state that are technically classified as a rainforest. Could be for some people it's too damn cold, meaning it's too damn rainy. That could be like, check it off the list right there.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to touch on too is that even though we do have no income tax on wages, there is now, as of a few years ago, a capital gains tax on high income earners in our state.
Yeah. Just to double back to the weather, one of the things that attracted us to it was that unlike a lot of states on this list, Washington has fairly temperate weather. At least, again, where we live at in the state of Washington is very temperate. So it doesn't get uber hot, and it rarely goes below freezing for long stretches of time the way a lot of other states do.
So it's definitely more mild. You get snow, but a lot less of it than, say, somewhere like New Hampshire. You get way less humidity than Tennessee, Florida, and Texas.
And unlike a common misconception, from a rainfall standpoint, Western Washington at least gets a lot less annual rainfall than a lot of states on this list. It is more kind of gray and overcast, but actual amounts of rain that you get is in some cases substantially less.
So those are the 9 income tax-free states. They all have different things to offer, different climates, different opportunities,
different
industries.
lifestyles, different politics. It's vastly different. But again, we wanted to kind of just give a kind of a topical comparison of the 9 states that do offer this, and kind of maybe a little bit of our perspective. And maybe a precursor to a more involved video. Don't know yet. If that's something that you want, let us know in the comments.
We could do like a big head-to-head matchup of all the states, ranking them based on our internal criteria.
A death match, if you will.
A death match. Is that a wrestling thing?
I think so.
So we hope you guys found this video useful as you're considering relocating. If looking at states that don't have income tax is important to you like it was to us, hopefully this video gives you a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, hopefully you found this video entertaining, maybe a little bit informational, and let us know in the comments. Again, we thrive off of the engagement on the channel, so if state income tax is one of your considerations, or was one of your considerations, or if any of this resonates with you, let us know in the comments, as well as maybe some future ideas that you might like us to cover in the future.
So if you watch this whole video and you feel like Washington is a great place for you to live and you want to know more about why we chose Southwest Washington, feel free to reach out. You can book a Zoom with myself and my team down in the description below. I am on every Zoom call, and all our contact information is there. And if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in the Pacific Northwest, you can shoot me a text at 360-818-4438. That is my personal cell phone. You will get a response from me, and I look forward to chatting with all of you as you consider Washington and our corner of the state in Southwest Washington. Till next time.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao. So these are the 7 tax-free income states.
9.
Oh, and I said tax-free income states.
One day at the office, eh? So we thought it would be great to kind of list out 6 of the more mainstream. So we thought it would be good to list out 6 of the main categories that most people consider when thinking about a state to live.
That's right back to where we were.
It is not. Fun fact, Washington is the potato capital of the United States.
You would think it'd be Idaho.
You would?
Are you sure about that?
No. I'm pretty sure though. Okay, Google. Take 3. So, there's an old saying. There's 2 types of states in the world. States that charge you.
Let's just start over.
Oh, come on. That was good. I like that.
We'll put it in the bloopers. Go ahead.
All right.